Never say of anything, I have lost it, but I have restored it. Has your child died? It is restored. Has your wife died? She is restored. Has your estate been taken away? That likewise is restored. But it was a bad man who took it. What is it to you, by whose hands he who gave it has demanded it again? While he permits you to possess it, hold it as something not your own, as do travelers at an inn. So today we're taking a look at the 11th chapter of the Enchiridion by Epictetus. And this is a doozy. This is one of the hardest videos I've had to make. I like doing all my videos in just one take. I don't do any editing. I switch all my cameras just using my mouse, keep things interesting. But like I've had to do multiple like sessions to be able to record one all the way through where I make it through this one, because it's just hard, right? The lesson we're being asked to learn here is not an easy lesson. And what I want to do is just start by telling a story. And hopefully this will help us sort of get into the lesson that Epictetus wants us to learn. So I had a friend, and she was somebody who I met at a training thing I was doing. I was learning some teaching techniques, and we got to know each other very well. And what she told me was that she was sad, and what was making her sad was that she goes through life meeting people, forming these wonderful, rich, deep, loving connections with them, and then they end. They end because people die, or they end because she was only traveling there for a short amount of time, and now she has to leave. She's not going to see them again. Or they end for other reasons, right? And so, like, when you find yourself in that situation, what do you do? What is a way that we can go through life and kind of, deal with the fact that the relationships we form are going to end? One thing we could do is we could just say goodbye to forming those relationships. We could just say, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm no longer going to go out and meet new people and form these kinds of loving connections. Right? So that's one option. Another one is to still meet people and still like form some sort of connections, but kind of keep a safe distance. Maybe you don't really invest in them. Maybe you sort of make yourself alienated from the full potential of those relationships, because you want to protect yourself from having those relationships end, right? I think that both of those solutions are not good in the long run. I think the first one is going to keep you really lonely, because it's going to mean that you're not forming relationships with people, and we need them. We are social animals. And the second one is also going to keep you alienated, because you're going to be around lots of people, but you're not going to have any friends. You're going to have a lot of people who kind of like you on the surface, but they don't really know you, right? You have a lot of people who like you, but very few people who actually know you, and very few people who you actually know. So that's also a recipe for long-term sort of low-grade unhappiness and ennui. So we need something else. We need something different. And what Epictetus is offering us here is a perspective shift that he thinks is the solution. So before the pandemic started and we were all sort of quarantined in our homes most of the time, I used to love when I'd have opportunities to travel. So like I liked traveling and playing concerts in different places. I'd go to sometimes even if it's just driving to Iowa to play a concert over there. Like that was a lot of fun. I loved going to talk at different philosophy conferences. I liked traveling to go do different activism things, right? And sometimes I get to stay in hotels. And when I was staying in a hotel, it was always an exciting experience. I think like staying in hotels hasn't gotten old for me, because I'm in this new room. There's all these new things to see. Even if it's not a very interesting hotel, it is still kind of cool to think about this as a place where all sorts of different lives have come in and out of there. And nobody who comes into the hotel room thinks that they own it. Like I don't go in and think, okay, yeah, this is my bed and my blanket, my sheet, and my walls, and my painting, if there's paintings on the wall. You don't think that. What you think is, I'm here for a little bit of time. This is where I'm going to reside for a very short amount of time. It doesn't belong to me. And soon I'm going to leave. And when I do, it's going to be, from my perspective, restored back into the void. Okay. Now, in the case of a hotel, it wasn't actually in a void before I saw it. Like I've advanced past the stage where I didn't have object permanence. Like I know things still exist before I after I see them, and they existed before I saw them, right? But the point is, like, from my perspective, when I'm thinking about like what is mine, the details of that hotel room wasn't part of my internal world before I saw it. And then after I leave, the hotel is slowly going to recede back in there. And in this sense, it's going to be restored. And the reason why I can think of it as being restored to the void in a way that doesn't cause me any stress is because I never took myself to own the hotel room. I never took it to be properly mine. I never took it to be a proper part of my domain, where I think of my domain as all the things that are me, that are me, and all the things over which I put like prudential concern. Right? And so what Epictetus is saying, and let's just take a look back at the text, very end. While he permits you to possess it, hold it as something not your own, as do travelers in an inn. So when we're talking about our estate, has your estate been taken away that likewise is restored? Think of your estate not as something that is properly yours, but it's just something that you are permitted to possess for a time. And then it's going to be restored back into the void. From your perspective. With your relationships, the same sort of thing. Like you're going to meet really exciting, interesting people in your life if you're doing it right. If you don't, then you're probably, there's some changes that you should be making. But thing is, those relationships didn't exist from your perspective, or at all really, before you met the person, right? And so what happens after that relationship ends is that it is restored again into the void. Right. And so what Epictetus is telling us to do is to just change our perspective, to have this kind of perspective shift, where instead of seeing the relationships in our life as things that we own, things over which we can take ownership, or the people in our life as things over which we can take ownership and over which we can see as part of ourselves, such that when those things are gone, when those people are gone, parts of ourselves die. Instead, he wants us to think of it as something or someone who comes into our life and is sort of given to us, and we're able to experience them or it for a time, and then they or it are restored. Okay. And since we're talking about logic-based therapy, I always like to relate these antidotes to the ways that we say in logic-based therapy people make themselves miserable. And the one that's going on here is demanding perfection, right? Because we often, have we often behave as if we were thinking to ourselves, it must be the case that nobody I love dies. It must be the case that my property is never taken away from me. It must be the case that the important relationships in my life never end. Okay? But those musts don't describe reality, because all those things can and probably will happen to you at some point in your life. And instead of thinking of it as, oh, yikes, I must demand that these things not happen. What Epictetus is doing is offering you a perspective shift that can that can allow you to become more secure with the imperfect universe that you live in, the universe where important relationships will end, important people to you will die, and important things you value will be destroyed. Okay. So that was the 11th chapter of the Enchiridion by Epictetus, and I've liked this tradition I've been doing for a couple of days, so I'm gonna close just by reading the text again. Never say of anything, I have lost it, but I have restored it. Has your child died? It is restored. Has your wife died? She is restored. Has your estate been taken away? That likewise is restored. But it was a bad man who took it. What is it to you? By whose hands he who gave it has demanded it again. While he permits you to possess it, hold it as something not your own, as do travelers at an inn.